You can do quite a lot in a month's time. It just so happens that I tend to play a lot of games. As a personal quirk of how I play games, I track when I start and finish every game I play, down to the day, so I always have records of what I played and when. Normally I don't really do anything with this info, but this past month I decided I'd change that. Welcome to the first installment of a series I'm choosing to call What I Played Last Month, in which I'll take all the games, new and old, that I've played in the last 28 to 31 day period and provide you, dear viewer, a short review on what I thought about each title, a score out of 10, and how much I recommend it to you. Will you find my taste impeccable? Will it be everything you've ever wanted and more? Or maybe you think I give things far better scores than I should. This past July, I finished about 5 single-player games, some of which I played on stream, others I played off-stream. By the way, I do that at the twitch.tv/human-shaped raccoon. If you just want to pause the video and type that into your search bar and just kind of type it in and go to it and then follow and watch me play games. Thank you. Starting the month off strong was my playthrough of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic & Knuckles, a combination release for the Sega Genesis that's commonly referred to as Sonic 3 and Knuckles, or S3K. I played S3K on stream after streaming the other classic Sonic titles featured in the Sonic Origins collection. We'll talk about that later. S3K is without a doubt the best game out of the 4 common classic Sonic games, and its quality is extremely apparent from the get-go. S3K is a game entirely about learning your environments, playing tightly, and maintaining speed as you maneuver through gorgeous and intriguing environments, all to music that is unmatched for the time. S3K consists of a total of 13 zones, each containing usually 2 levels. Each of these levels is designed in such a way to provide thoughtful barriers to player progression that encourage the player to learn how to avoid them in the future or look out for similar traps later in the level. What I think S3K succeeds in above its contemporaries above all is its visuals and level theming. Every zone in S3K is clearly made with the intent to make the player feel as though they've just moved through a very real environment, not just moving through a series of platforms that are different colors without any sense of grounding to them. This impression that the level presentation gives to the player helps to cut down on a later game's slog, a sentiment that I personally experienced in each of the other Sonic titles from this era, and despite this game's significant length, as it's ostensibly 2 games, I found myself very engaged in it the entire time. Zones like Ice Cap, Carnival Night, Mushroom Hill, and of course Sky Sanctuary Zone all provided unique and extremely compelling set pieces that all felt delightful to run through and experience. Above anything else, S3K succeeds in its incredible theming. However, this isn't to say that the levels are really well themed, but awful otherwise. Every zone provides interesting challenges that come off as extremely fair, with the exception of one instance in Carnival Night. I'm looking at you, you notorious bastard. Basically everything in the game follows a reasonable learning curve to get you to learn the skills that will bring you to success. I don't really have much more to say about S3K itself. The gameplay is polished, the presentation is great, it's probably the best out of the first 4 Sonic games, the music is incredible, well, the stuff that made it into Sonic Origins anyway. Yeah, it's about time to talk about Sonic Origins. It's basically impossible to mention the game without bringing up how the music in Carnival Night, Ice Cap Zone, and Launch Base Zones were all replaced with prototype music. This is because of a funny, silly little piece of trivia, a goofy little tidbit that you definitely didn't know about, a little factoid of unscrupulous or Michael Jackson's estate would have likely threatened legal action against Sega were they to include the music, as he worked with Sega to make the tracks included in the original release, however was uncredited on the final release, following, that. Do I necessarily fault Sega for it? Not particularly. I can see why they wouldn't want the lawsuit. It's just kind of a pain. However, that's not even the real issue with Sonic Origins. Origins is more or less unfinished. The physics occasionally feel super off, the frame rate can chug, and by and large it's a rather unimpressive port overall. If I'm honest, don't buy Sonic Origins. Unless you're completely new to the series, it's not really worth your time. If you want to play the classics, I recommend finding a way to play Sonic Mega Collection for the GameCube or Sonic Classics Collection for the DS. As for S3K itself, though, this game is fucking phenomenal. If I were to give it a score out of 10, it's a confident 9 out of 10. A great Sonic game for those who want that classic 2D gameplay, and I might go so far as to say that it's the gold standard for any future classic-style Sonic game. I'll be like 100% with you right now. This game is really only here because I decided one day to go back and finish the final boss that I, for some reason, decided not to kill when I started this game way back in like April of 2020. So, admittedly, my opinions are gonna be like kinda rusty. So it's not gonna be as fresh as the other opinions here because really I played this game 2 years ago, but I finished the game 2 months ago. Shadow of the Colossus is a game where you are but a small little guy, and you are tasked with killing really big guys in order to bring your dead sister back to life. How? I don't know, don't ask me. This game's story doesn't really make much sense if I'm honest with you. Like, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but the lore, at least to me, not what I'm here for. Now, you may be wondering, how does one go about killing these aforementioned big guys? The gameplay of Shadow of the Colossus revolves around you finding creative ways of jumping up onto the Colossi themselves, and stabbing them in their various weak points with your sword. The Colossi, while they appear as bosses, are really more so a giant motion-intensive puzzle. They'll fight against you, flailing and shaking and jumping and intentionally making themselves scarce, and it's your job to figure out how you're supposed to manage your limited stamina in order to maneuver your way onto them and to the points you need. Each of the 16 Colossi are extremely unique. Very few of them share even remotely similar attacks, and even if they share a similar physiology, their bodies and the arenas you fight them in will change the fight against what may appear to be two similar enemies into a completely different fight each time. Despite the compelling gameplay, the best part of the game to me are the unique atmospheres that are given by each Colossus. Many of them appear extremely gentle, some are like apex predators, others appear ambivalent to everything around them, but every Colossus, regardless of the animal or thing that it's based on, has an ancient and powerful aura about them. My favorite moments in this game are after you do finally kill one of these massive beasts. It falls to the ground limp, sometimes struggling, and you can't help but feel that you've done something wrong by killing it, as if the notion of killing it is a supreme act of arrogance, and the fragility of human life and the indomitable human spirit as a force, while usually poised for good, is framed in a negative light. Moments like these highlight how you, the player, are a stranger in a strange land, and while I think this game's story is rather confusing, that which is given to you is almost entirely up to your interpretation. Its message and what you take away from it as a narrative is almost entirely up to you. I took a staunch pro-environment stance on it, but maybe you'll take something different from it. Ultimately, I really don't want to say a whole lot more about this game, as I think it's better if you go and play it yourself, as I think that the nature of the puzzles and the spectacle is best experienced, again, yourself. Final notes: gameplay is great, spectacle is great, music is great. If you've been thinking of playing Shadow of the Colossus, now you have the pinch seal of approval to galvanize you. 8 out of 10. Go play it. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is a point-and-click adventure/visual novel in which you play as upstart attorney Phoenix Wright, who is tasked with defending various suspects in court cases, with a judicial system loosely based around the Japanese court system. The game can be split into two distinct sections, investigating to gain evidence for a trial and the trial itself. In terms of actual user interfaces, next to nothing changes. However, the goals and subsequent methods of each section are very different. Investigations see Wright and company attempting to scour for evidence that would provide contradictions to their client's involvement with a case. These take place usually on or near the crime scene where the murder takes place. Of course, while these investigations seem as though they could be extremely gritty and difficult to sit through, they are instead peppered with extremely witty dialogue, references to both itself and other media, as well as character narration that serves to highlight various aspects of our main and peripheral cast. The trial itself is where your understanding of the case as it is presented to you in the investigation is tested. Your goal is to cross-examine the witnesses of the crime, to attempt to dismantle their testimonies based on information that you found previously, or in some cases, using other witnesses' testimonies. Trials are, without a doubt, the most thrilling aspect of the game. Due to clever use of text cues, audio cues, and satisfying writing, the moment in which Phoenix, and therefore you, turns the tables on the prosecution is no less than hype, and the brief periods in which this takes place are my absolute favorite moments of the game. However, due to Phoenix Wright's attorney's aforementioned dynamic and appropriate writing, even when you are on your back foot, the trials remain extremely fulfilling to play. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for the investigative sections. Frequently, you find yourself aimlessly clicking through screens with nothing changed on them until you eventually stumble upon the minute details that always seem to be either the entire point of the case or something completely irrelevant that only serves to send you in more confusing and frankly annoying trips between screens. This is unfortunately not helped by the extremely odd and archaic menuing. It lacks intuition, and I would be confident in saying that it is firmly a negative of the game. However, these issues can be rectified by learning the unique quirks of the game. For example, when you still have something to find in an area, music will be playing in the background. When you do not have anything to find in an area, music will not be playing. So if nothing else, there is a reliable way to brute force your way to the evidence. It's likely that you maybe won't put this together during your playthrough without the help of an outside figure, or at least I didn't. I don't know, maybe I'm dumb or something. But now you know. Generally, this is a minor issue I have, as frankly the writing throughout these sections, regardless of how tedious the gameplay is extremely entertaining, meaning that the entire game is fun, if for no other reason than it being written well. There is an age-old question, however, as to whether I prefer Danganronpa over Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Alright, settle down. Personally, I still prefer Danganronpa. Maybe because I've played almost all of that series, but that's okay, because they're both good at very different things. I think, for example, Danganronpa does significantly better at the investigation aspect of the title, whereas its trials can often seem menial and occasionally boring. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney has the opposite issue. Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney's investigations are its main slog, however, its trials are, even in the most seemingly mundane of cases, exhilarating. Do I think that you should play Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney? Yes, I think that if you're interested in the genre, or if you're a veteran of the genre, you should check out Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, as it uses its unique privileges within the medium to its advantage in an extremely satisfying fashion. 8 out of 10. I took my first romp through Boletaria in the Bluepoint remaster of Demon's Souls for PS5. I've been a Souls fan for a good while, and have at this point played most of the titles in the extended franchise, my favorite being Bloodborne. Needless to say, I was extremely excited to experience the beginning of this franchise that I had come to love so much. I'd heard conflicting opinions in the past regarding the game, and whether or not it stands the test of time, as some say that its worst aspects have long since been buffed out of any given From Software release. To further exacerbate the incredible disparity between the titles I had grown used to and this one, at the time that I began streaming this on Twitch, it was about a week and a half since I'd finished my 3 runs for all of the trophies in Elden Ring. If there was anything at all that didn't age well, I was sure to find it, as I was extremely used to the quality of life improvements that had culminated in a game like Elden Ring. However, despite my rustiness, stepping into Boletaria felt akin to walking into a house you once lived in before you moved and new owners took over the place. There's a strong sense that you know what's around you, but the individual pieces are different, and nothing is exactly the same. As opposed to the carpets being new and the tables being different, the castles were new, and the parryable enemies were in vastly different places. Demon's Souls is the game that pioneered the Souls genre, and you can tell in how long it takes to really teach you the basics of the genre. Demon's Souls doesn't really get to teaching you until comparatively much later. This isn't a flaw, of course. The series had to be established somewhere, so it only makes sense that what comparative depth is present in much later entries, particularly entries following Dark Souls 2's release, would be the sort of thing that the player is taught throughout the entire experience. To Demon's Souls' credit, it does do a great job of teaching you these lessons, as its level design is usually extremely linear. It provides interesting challenge throughout, all of which attempts to push the boundaries of your fundamental abilities. Because of this alone, I would almost recommend Demon's Souls to anyone who is looking to experience the franchise for the first time. However, there is one major flaw that I cannot recommend the game to newcomers for: world tendency. World tendency is a complicated and frankly annoying as fuck system that services to alter your game world based on your performance in it. Without knowledge of some of the triggers to make your world tendency worse, it is incredibly easy to make an area of the game needlessly difficult for you, all because you died a mere 3 times in human form in a rather difficult game. This was the case for me, as I was trying to look up as little as possible going into Demon's Souls, and underestimated how incredibly quickly world tendency will just annihilate whatever it is you're attempting to do. I spent probably 1/5 of my playtime in just 3-1, the Prison of Hope, because I accidentally went straight to the level several times after killing bosses, and then ruined my world tendency on 1/5 of the game for the rest of the run, making incredibly tanky, one-shot enemies spawn in locations that would be uniquely difficult to avoid for any given player. Demon's Souls is not a game that I would comfortably recommend to a new player for this sole reason. However, because the intent of this video is to make you perhaps play these same games that I did, I will impart upon you this wisdom. In order to prevent yourself from ruining any area's world tendency, whenever you are in human form, you need to go to the Nexus, go to the highest ledge, and throw yourself off of it. Dying in human form is the quickest way to ruin your world tendency, so stay out of human form. Don't worry about the extra health that human form gives you. It does not matter compared to the risk that ruining your world tendency poses. Make sure you play the game in soul form for the vast majority of your playthrough, and you'll be fine. Bluepoint has done an immaculate job at taking this game's bones and applying new skin to them. Their updated models, textures, and sound design all serve to make this game, which already appeared impressive at its time, into a true atmospheric treat for the senses. One of the finest aspects of Demon's Souls is the way that its atmosphere permeates and seemingly sticks to you, its every hallway and corridor imprinting onto you a sense of its history and grandeur. The visual upgrades to this game make this version, without a doubt in my mind, the best possible way to experience the narrative in Boletaria. In terms of everything else about this game, I won't bore you with the slog of information about how it compares to every other Souls game, as you don't want to know that, and frankly, that is up to your own interpretation. I could tell you how I feel about it, or I can encourage you to go and experience this game for yourself and make your own judgment. Should you play it? Yeah, but don't be afraid to look at a guide for your own sanity. At least in some aspects. Overall, I give Demon's Souls 2020 an 8 out of 10. I honestly didn't have a good judgment on what Stray would truly be. I remember watching the 2020 PS5 reveal and seeing this game in the up-and-coming roster of games that would be playable on PS5. I was hooked from the start. It's not every day, after all, that you see a game that is about a legitimate cat. Like, not a furry, not like me, no, like just a cat. I knew that there was a good chance that I would buy into Stray purely on that alone, and upon the time of release, I was seeing everyone around me playing it, and my picture of the game began to further develop. I knew, based on its promo, that it would incorporate cyberpunk elements into its world. What I didn't realize was how incredibly prevalent these elements would become in the game. Obviously, any story will be shaped by its setting, and Stray is no different. To an outsider, it may seem that Stray is simply a game about a cat who runs around making trouble, but in truth, this is an automated parkour romp through a post-humanity liberation story that sees this single cat as the final bastion for freedom for intelligent life. How we got there? I got no fucking idea. In Stray, This messiah of a cat navigates this task by running, jumping, knocking things over, and overall just kind of being a cat. Stray is a game that takes the feasibility of what a cat can do and makes interesting and engaging puzzles out of it. It's extremely satisfying to run around and figure out what combination of mischief you can get yourself into in order to solve any given problem, whether that be flesh-eating parasites or distracting someone into dropping paint all over the ground. Even between these moments of seemingly mean-spirited cat behavior, you can also engage in simple pleasures, small things that do little more than to enrich your existence in this small corner of the cyberpunk dystopia you find yourself in. Moments like sitting down and listening to a guitarist play a series of songs that you collected the sheet music for and brought to him, or getting pet, or in general being seen as small and cute. In some ways, Stray is a subversion of cyberpunk, not only due to the inherent newness of having an actual cat as a protagonist of this sort of story, but also in the hope that being this cat allows into its narrative. Pets and animals in general for many people are a beacon of warmth and love. There are countless people who can't watch movies where animals get hurt, whether fictionally or otherwise. People need love. It's in the nature of intelligent life. Even when such a hostile place as the city in Stray is, the fact that even one issue can be solved by a cat with a backpack is a distinct and unique form of hope in the genre. Cyberpunk is typically extremely cynical, often to a hopeless degree, so seeing the aesthetics and tropes of cyberpunk flipped for the sake of uplifting people is worth experiencing in and of itself. Stray is not a game about a cat. Stray is a game about hope. You should play Stray. I think it'll probably be one of the best games to come out this year, and if you're on the fence, this is your wake-up call. 9 out of 10. I got to play a lot of really great stuff in my free time, and I'm really happy to be able to share my thoughts with you. It's kind of incredible that I would recommend every game I played this past month with basically no exceptions. Maybe I just have a good eye for what I want to play. I guess if this becomes a pattern, we'll know, but that's for next month. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I very much appreciate you being here and watching all the way to the end. If you're still here, thank you very much. Like the video, subscribe, comment, and if you really want to go the extra mile, and if you like me that much, you can find a whole hell of a lot more of me on twitch.tv/human-shaped-raccoon. Thank you very, very much yet again for watching this all the way through. It really, really makes me happy to just be able to kind of share my thoughts on things, because that's important to me, is that we share information. That'll be all from me. I hope to see you next month for another one of these videos, and have a delightful night. Check your pockets, and goodbye.